Welcome to the Geostrategic Podcast.
Hello, everyone, and thank you for watching or listening to the podcast. Imagine a sky where the West no longer holds the cards. 1,000 Chinese J-20s versus just 187 American F-22s. The math of global power just changed. Continue by focusing on the geostrategic implications of this move. This massive industrial surge isn't just a threat. It's a total redrawing of the Indo-Pacific map, neutralizing U.S. carriers and ending decades of air dominance. If this shift shocks you, smash that like button, share this, and hit subscribe.
Now, I want to hear from you. Is the era of Western air power officially over? Drop your thoughts in the comments below. I'm reading every single one, so let's get this debate started. Thank you, everyone, for listening or watching, and I invite you to listen to the other podcasts.
That is quite the opening, but looking at the data stacked on my desk this morning, I really can't say it's an exaggeration.
It feels heavy just reading it.
It is. We are staring at a fundamental shift in, well, the architecture of global security. And frankly, the numbers back up every single word of that intro. So to guide us through this new reality, we're doing a deep dive into a brand new report from RUSI, that's the Royal United Services Institute. It has some incredibly detailed analysis from Professor Justin Bronk on what they're calling China's skyward surge.
Right.
And usually, when I see these defense reports, I expect dry stats, budget cycles. This feels different. It feels urgent.
It is urgent, and the core mission of our deep dive today is to really peel back the layers of that urgency. We need to get past the scary headlines and actually understand the mechanics of this shift.
The nuts and bolts of it.
Exactly. We need to look at the industrial capacity, the missile technology, which is, wow, a story all on its own, and then ultimately answer the question, what does this mean for you, for everyone, in a world where the U.S. might not be the undisputed king of the skies anymore?
Let's start right there with the math problem you mentioned. The headline projection is that China will have 1,000 J-20 stealth fighters by 2030. The J-20 is their mighty dragon, right? Their answer to the top-tier U.S. fighters.
It is.
But help me understand the disparity here. How does that compare to what the U.S. actually has, ready to fight?
This is where the numbers get really uncomfortable. The direct competitor to the J-20 is the U.S. F-22 Raptor.
Which is, everyone says it's the best air superiority fighter ever built. Agile, stealthy, fast.
Oh, absolutely. It's a marvel of engineering. But, and here's the kicker, the U.S. only has 187 of them.
187? That seems incredibly low for a superpower. Why so few?
Well, it goes back to decisions made over a decade ago. The production lines were actually closed because, at the time, the U.S. just didn't see a peer competitor on the horizon.
So they thought they had enough.
They capped the number, yeah. The assumption was that 187 was plenty to handle, rogue states or smaller powers. Fast forward to 2030, and you're looking at a situation where China is projected to have a fifth-gen stealth fleet that is roughly 5 times the size of America's premier air superiority fleet.
5 times. That's not a gap. That's a canyon. But I have to play devil's advocate here because I know what people are thinking. What about the F-35?
The F-35, right.
The U.S. and its allies have thousands of those, don't they? Isn't comparing the J-20 only to the F-22 a little bit of, cherry picking?
That is the most common counter-argument. And look, on the surface, it makes sense. There are indeed over 1,000 F-35s globally. Lockheed Martin is delivering nearly 200 a year. But, and this is the crucial nuance the RUSI report highlights, we have to look at concentration of force versus dilution.
You mean where they're physically located?
Exactly. Those F-35s, they're spread across 19 different countries. They're in Norway, the UK, Israel, Japan, Australia. They are diluted.
So every country has its own logistics, its own politics.
Its own political red lines, its own maintenance schedules, you name it. Now, the Chinese J-20 fleet, on the other hand, is 100% concentrated within the PLAAF, the People's Liberation Army Air Force. It's a unified force, single command structure, designed for one theater of operations, the Indo-Pacific.
So while the West is worrying about who gets which spare parts, Beijing is just massing everything in one backyard.
Precisely. It's the difference between having 1,000 players scattered across 20 different football leagues versus having 1,000 players all on one field playing one game.
You might have more players globally, but it doesn't help you win the specific match happening right here, right now.
That nails it. It's local superiority versus global inventory.
Okay, that makes sense. But let's talk about how they even got here. You don't just wake up one morning with 1,000 stealth jets. The report talks about this shift from experimental batches to mass production. What does that actually look like?
It looks like Cold War-era production rates, and I don't use that comparison lightly. By the end of 2025, so just looking back at last year, the U.S. China reached an annual production rate of about 120 J-20s.
120 a year?
A year. That includes both the standard J-20A and the twin-seat J-20S variants.
That's 10 a month. A sophisticated stealth fighter rolling off the line every 3 days? That's staggering.
It really is. It rivals the speed at which the U.S. was pumping out fighters when it was staring down the Soviet Union. This is not a boutique operation anymore.
All right, this isn't hand-building prototypes.
No, this is industrial-scale warfare capability. Professor Bronk notes in the report that this marks a turning point where China's defense economy is effectively doubling its military capabilities through sheer efficiency.
Efficiency.
Yeah.
In the West, that word usually isn't associated with military tech. We're used to hearing about things costing billions and running years over budget. What's the sticker price on a J-20?
The estimates sit somewhere between 90 and 110 million US dollars per unit.
Which, in the world of high-end military tech, is surprisingly reasonable.
It's very competitive, but the real kicker isn't just the price, it's the supply chain. The report emphasizes these jets are built on autonomous domestic supply chains.
Meaning they aren't waiting for a microchip from a country that might sanction them.
Exactly. They are immune to Western export controls and political pressure. For so long, the assumption was that China needed Russian engines or Western components. That era is over.
So what here seems to be that we can no longer just count on having better stuff to win?
That is the absolute key takeaway for this whole segment. For decades, the West, and specifically the U.S., relied on a strategy of quality over quantity.
We didn't need as many planes because ours were practically invincible.
Right, but now China has achieved quality and quantity. Numerical advantage is no longer a Western monopoly.
And that changes the math of war, doesn't it? I mean, if you have more planes, you can afford to lose more planes.
It changes the calculus of what we call asset depreciation. It's a grim term, but in a long conflict, you have to ask, how many planes can you afford to lose?
And if you only have 187 Raptors?
Every loss is a strategic catastrophe. You lose 10, you've lost 5% of your global force. If you have 1,000 J-20s, you can absorb losses and keep fighting. That resilience is a strategic game changer.
It's a chilling thought. But let's pivot, because having 1,000 planes is one thing. If they can't hit anything, they're just expensive airshow props. The report suggests that's not the case at all.
Not even close. And this brings us to the Beyond Visual Range capability, or BVR. This is where the technological leap is perhaps even more concerning than the production numbers. We are talking about their PL series missiles.
The report mentions the PL-15 and the PL-17. Let's break these down. What makes them so different?
Well, they're redefining the engagement envelope. Let's look at the PL-15 first. This is their standard long-range air-to-air missile. It uses an AES target finder.
Okay, stop there. AESA. I see that acronym everywhere. Give us the explain like I'm 5 on that.
Yeah, of course. It's a great question. So think of an old school radar, right? It's like a flashlight in a dark room.
You have to physically point it to see something.
Exactly. You have to physically turn it, point the beam. It takes time, and the enemy can see the light moving. But an AE, that's active electronically scanned array, it's like having 1,000 tiny laser pointers on a fixed board.
So it's faster, sees more.
It's instantaneous. It can track 1,000 targets in 1,000 different directions without ever moving. So the PL-15 couples that seeker with dual mode guidance and has a range of over 200 kilometers.
200 kilometers. How does that stack up against the standard U.S. missile, the AMRAAM?
The RUSI report is very explicit here. The PL-15 outperforms the standard AIM-120D AMRAAM in range. But even more importantly, it has a higher peak speed that reduces the time to target.
So if you're a U.S. pilot, you have less time to react, less time to even try to dodge.
Exactly. And since the J-20 carries these internally to stay stealthy, you might not even know it's coming until it's way too late. But then there is the PL-17.
The report calls this one a monster. Why?
Because of the range. It can hit targets around 400 kilometers away.
400 kilometers. It's practically sniping from a different area code. Why would you need an air-to-air missile that goes that far? You can't even see the enemy fighter jet at that distance.
And that's the point. The strategic function of the PL-17 isn't to dogfight. It's designed to hunt what we call high-value assets. Ah, so not the fighters.
No. We're talking about aerial refueling tankers and the airborne early warning planes, the AWACS, the slow, bulky planes that make the whole war machine work.
The brains and the blood of the operation.
Perfect analogy. Think of the tankers as the oxygen line for the fighter jets. If you cut the oxygen line, you don't have to fight the person on the other end, they just pass out. If the PL-17 shoots down the tanker, the F-35s run out of gas and fall into the ocean, you win without ever entering a dogfight.
That is incredibly smart and incredibly dangerous. But here's where I want to push back a bit on the paper stats. We hear about these wonder weapons, but do they actually work? The report mentions a specific incident, May 2025, Operation Sindoor.
Right, and this was the wake-up call for intelligence agencies globally. This was not a simulation.
Yeah.
According to the source, during Operation Sindoor, a Pakistani J-10CE, which is a Chinese-made export fighter, fired the export version of the PL-15.
Export version, so maybe not even the top-of-the-line model. Probably not. And the result? It reportedly shot down Indian Rafale and Su-30 MKI aircraft from a significant distance.
Whoa. Let's pause there. The Rafale is a top-tier French jet. The Su-30 is a heavy Russian fighter. These are some of the best non-stealth aircraft in the world.
Very capable aircraft. And the fact that Chinese missile tech, even the downgraded export version, was able to down them in actual combat proves that this technology works. It is not propaganda.
It takes this from a theoretical threat to combat proven. Okay, so we have the numbers, we have the reach, but the report talks about something bigger. It calls it an ecosystem. What does that mean?
Well, it's tempting to focus just on the J-20 because it's the sexy, stealthy star of the show.
Of course.
But in modern warfare, the star needs a supporting cast. You can't just send a stealth jet out there alone and expect it to win a war.
It's like a quarterback.
Yeah.
Needs a defensive line and wide receivers. If the line collapses, the quarterback gets sacked.
That is the perfect analogy. And China has built a comprehensive modernization of the entire PLAAF. The J-20 is the tip of the spear, but look at what's behind it. The J-16.
The J-16. These are the non-stealthy ones, right? Why build those if you have the J-20?
Because stealth jets have a physical limitation. They have to carry weapons inside to stay stealthy. They can't carry that much stuff.
Right.
The J-16s are what we call heavy trucks.
Okay.
The projection is for 900 of them by 2030. They carry the massive payloads, the extra missiles, the heavy electronic warfare gear. The J-20 kicks down the door, and then the J-16s flood in to smash everything inside.
So it's not about one invisible plane. It's about a web.
It's a distributed destruction network. You have the J-10Cs providing affordable mass, the KJ-500 AEW aircraft acting as the eyes, and the report even highlights human unmanned teamwork. We're seeing drones like the GJ-11 entering the ecosystem.
The loyal wingman drones we hear about.
Yes, they can fly ahead, absorb fire, act as sensors. The drone sees the target, sends the data to the J-20, which tells the J-16 to fire. It's a highly integrated kill chain.
Okay, so we have the machine, the missiles, the numbers. Let's talk about what they do with it. This brings us to the geostrategic implications. All of this tech, it's pointed somewhere.
It is. It's pointed squarely at the Indo-Pacific. And this is where the rubber meets the road.
So let's ask the big question. The U.S. has always relied on expeditionary dominance. We sail our carriers over, park them nearby, and project power. What happens to that strategy now?
It effectively ends it, or at least makes it prohibitively dangerous. The range of the J-20, combined with those PL-17 missiles, threatens U.S. forward bases and carrier groups at distances greater than 1,000 kilometers.
1,000 kilometers. That's a massive bubble.
Think about what that means. If a carrier captain has to keep his ship that far away to stay safe, his jets, the F-35s and F-18s, they can barely reach the fight.
And even if they do, they're running on fumes.
They can't loiter. They fly in, drop a bomb, and have to turn back immediately. And remember what the PL-17 is designed to kill.
The refueling tankers.
Correct. So you have fighters launching from too far away, needing fuel to get there, and the enemy is specifically hunting the gas stations in the sky. The RUSI simulations show that this could disrupt U.S. refueling networks so severely that it becomes nearly impossible for U.S. fighters to maintain a presence over Taiwan or the South China Sea.
It neutralizes the fleet without having to sink the fleet.
That's the doctrine. It undermines the core assumption of American power projection. The safe distance has been pushed back so far that the U.S. Navy could become a spectator.
What does this do to the neighbors? You mentioned Taiwan, but what about ASEAN nations, the Philippines, Vietnam?
For them, their freedom of movement is severely constrained. They are all operating under the shadow of the J-20. They know that if push comes to shove, the U.S. cavalry might be parked too far away to help in time.
And India. That Operation Sindoor must have rattled them.
India is in a very tough spot. They face a severe missile range imbalance. That clash proved their current fleet, even with the advanced Rafale, is vulnerable. The Himalayas are no longer a barrier if the missiles can reach over them.
It feels like the entire board has been flipped.
The report calls it a revolutionary challenge. The West got used to fighting opponents where we had total air dominance. We haven't faced a peer competitor with this kind of scale since World War II. China has achieved a level of sophistication previously monopolized by the U.S., but they've done it at a scale the U.S. hasn't matched.
So bringing it back to the listener, why should someone in Ohio or Manchester care?
Because it forces a total reassessment of deterrence. The peace in the Indo-Pacific, and by extension, the stability of the global economy, has been kept by the assumption that the U.S. would win a fight. That certainty kept everyone in check.
And if that certainty is gone?
If that assumption is gone, or even just in doubt, the risk of miscalculation, of conflict, skyrockets. Aggressors get bolder. Alliances have to rethink everything.
It's a sobering reality check. We've gone from a world where U.S. air dominance was like gravity, just a fact of life, to a world where it's highly contested.
And that shift is happening right now. The industrial engine is running at full speed today.
Just to wrap this up, let's recap. We're looking at a 1,000-strong stealth fleet by 2030. Missiles that can snipe tankers from 400 kilometers away. A massive industrial base, churning these out at Cold War speeds. This has turned a theoretical risk into an operational reality.
It certainly has. And it leaves us with a provocative thought to end on. If the era of uncontested Western air superiority is over, what comes next? Is it a new Cold War standoff, or does the West have to invent a completely new way of fighting, maybe relying on space, cyber, or lasers, to reset the board? Because playing the same game by the old rules looks like a losing proposition.
That is the question of the decade. Thank you, everyone, for listening or watching, and I invite you to listen to the other podcasts.
If you found this discussion valuable, please like, share, and subscribe to the Geostrategic Podcast for more in-depth analysis on topics that shape our world. Stay informed, stay ahead, and stay tuned for the next episode. See you in the next one.